into how I got into this subject. I used to work in research and development at AstraZeneca a number of years ago, and I was fascinated, I became fascinated by the placebo effect. And you know, people get, in medical trials, half the people get the medicine, half get the fake version. I worked in cardiovascular medicine, a wee bit in cancer as well, but predominantly cardiovascular. And I thought it was fascinating that so many people made improvements on the sugar tablets. And so I started to research the mind-body connection and try to understand why is it and how is it that when you believe something or imagine something or feel something or think something, why and how that brings about an effect in the body. And that naturally led me into kindness, because one of the most powerful sets of effects in the human body is when you have an experience of kindness. And I say an experience of kindness because kindness is a thing that you do, but it's also an experience, because it's a psychological experience that because of how it feels, because of what it's like for you, and because of what it's like, there's a whole array of different effects in your brain and inside your body when you give kindness, receive kindness, or even when you witness it. In fact, the other day there, I posted a video on my social media of a research study that I found where volunteers simply watched a video. And it was a video actually of Mother Teresa. It was a study done a number of years ago. And it was Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who was, and the video was an hour long, and they just watched her being kind and compassionate. So care and compassion, and that's all she did for the hour, and all they were asked to do was just observe these acts of care and compassion. Now they had their immune system sampled before and after, and several hours later. And they took a wee saliva swabs, and there's a wee immune system antibody called secretory immunoglobulin A. That's for the test at the end, by the way. I'm only kidding. It's not a test. But it's called SIGA. And it's an antibody. It's part of the immune system. It's a good proxy for your whole immune function. And what they found is, after just watching acts of care and compassion for 1 hour, levels of this immune system antibody increased by 50%. Isn't that amazing? They weren't doing kind themselves. We were just simply watching someone else demonstrate care and compassion, and this levels of this antibody shot up by 50%, and they stayed elevated for a couple of hours later as people kept reflecting back. I remember that thing when she sat beside that elderly gentleman and didn't even say a word, but just let him know that he wasn't alone in the world. And just reflecting back on that, the immune system antibody kept rising up and up and up. So there's a lot to be said about just witnessing other people being kind. But what I want to start with is one of the most potent effects of helping people is that it benefits our mental health. And I wanted to start with that because there's loads and loads of research studies on it, but one kind of captures it quite well. Researchers in Vancouver gave several hundred people a small sum of money at the beginning of the day, and they said to half of them, so 660 people, and they said to half of them, I would like you to take that money and treat yourself today. Just take the money and go treat yourself. The other half of the people, they said, I'd like you to take that money and do something good with it. Do something for the benefit of someone else. I mean, they came back at the end of the day and they were assessed. It was a psychology assessment, and it turned out that those who'd done something good with the money were significantly happier than those who'd spent the money on themselves. And that kind of captures a whole range of different types of studies that show that kindness makes us happier, helping others makes us happy, but it's also protective to a degree against depression and anxiety. And the reason for this, I call this nature's reward, right? Because many, many moons ago, eons ago, our ancient ancestors learned that helping each other out, looking out for each other, supporting each other, encouraging each other, helping each other through difficult and challenging times, that was actually safer and healthier for us as a species than trying to go it alone and just doing everything for yourself. Because there wasn't supermarkets at the bottom of the street in those days. You know, if you wanted food, you had to go get it, and you were also at the mercy. You didn't have big blocky buildings that were nice and warm with central heating. You know, so if you were at the mercy of the climate, wild animals, invading tribes. So helping each other out, looking out for each other, working together as a team, turned out to be a really wise thing. And so, because they spent so much time together, they had to find a way of enjoying that time together. So we evolved play and just lots of helping behaviours. Now wind the clock forward to the present day. And what we get out of that is a good feeling when you be kind. And I call this nature's reward. So nature's reward is that you get a little, it's like you do something kind, and nature says, well done, thanks for doing something that's keeping us all together. Here's a wee squirt of happy hormones for your trouble. Because what happens in the brain is you get a wee squirt of dopamine, serotonin, the brain's natural opioids, our own version of morphine and heroin, and a wee hormone called oxytocin. And all of these float around in the brain in varying quantities when you simply help someone. And it doesn't have to be something big, it can be simply a couple of words of encouragement or support. Even spending time being present with someone, letting someone know that they're not alone, or letting someone know that you hear them, that you're listening. All of these things produce these little changes in the brain. But it gets better, because consistent kindness, which is, I know, something that all of you do. When you're consistently kind, what's fascinating is it actually causes a change in the physical structure of your brain. Compared to people who are not consistently kind, it's like, if you work out a muscle and it grows stronger. So similarly, when you're consistently kind, consistently helping, you actually rewire very important circuits of the brain. And it's like, anyone ever practice mindfulness? Anyone? Mindfulness? No? A handful. So, if you've never tried mindfulness, think of this as mindfulness 101, right? So let's suppose you were to breathe, which most of you do. But let's suppose you were to breathe and then notice that you're breathing. In other words, bring your attention to what breathing is like. In other words, so you might notice what it sounds like. You might notice what the sensation is like. That feels good. I can feel it. I'm bringing my attention to what it's like in my nose or in my tummy. So as you're becoming mindful of what breathing is like, you're now doing mindfulness. And that's the simplest form. But what's interesting is if I was to take a scan of your brain, an MRI of your brain, before you notice your breathing, just as you breathe as normal, you'll find activity dotted all over the brain. But the moment you bring your attention to what breathing is like, you'll find that most of the activity now moves to the front of the brain, and this is the noticing part of the brain. This is the part of the brain that's, in a sense, getting a workout when you're noticing something, when you're giving something your attention. And it's like you literally take it to the gym. And if you go to the gym, you work out a muscle, you'll notice that 3 things happen. The muscle becomes firmer, larger, and more powerful. And it means that everything you use that muscle for becomes easier. So if, for example, I was trying to lift a piece of furniture, initially I thought, wow, that's really heavy. And then after a few weeks of going to the gym, doing some reps, I come to the same piece of furniture and it's actually quite light. It's a feather, because the muscle's more powerful. Similarly, if you breathe and then notice that you're breathing, in other words, you're mindful of it, so you're doing mindfulness, then this part of the brain becomes firmer, larger, and more powerful, like the muscle. Although neuroscientists don't call it muscle growth, they like to sound really clever. So we call it neuroplasticity. If you've ever heard that word, it's the brain's version of muscle growth. But what's interesting is this part of the brain becomes firmer, larger, more powerful, and everything you use it for then becomes easier, like lifting the piece of furniture. This part of the brain plays a key role in concentration, the ability to manage your state, the ability to override knee-jerk reactions to things, even short-term memory. They think of it as the brain's executive management functions. It's the top level, really, area of the brain, and that literally grows physically stronger through simply breathing and noticing that that's what you're doing, bringing your attention. But here's where I'm going with this. If instead of doing mindfulness, you do what I call kindfulness, right? So kindfulness is a style of practice where at least some of your focus now diverts to thinking kindly. So you might be thinking kindly of someone that you know. You might be thinking of someone that you care about and thinking, oh, such a nice person. I remember that thing that she did or he did. Or you might just be wishing nice things for people. But whatever it is, at least some of your attention is in your mind is focused on kindness and compassion. And now what happens is you also work out this frontal part of the brain, but there's a slight bias to the left-hand side. I don't know if that, look, I meant to put that on the left, but it's inverted the slide. So it looks like it's on the right, but it's on the left. There's a slight bias to the left-hand side, and a wee bit further. And now, crucially, these parts of the brain also get firmer, larger, and more powerful. Now, notice the point I'm making here. All you're doing here is you're thinking kindly. You're actually thinking of people, and you're thinking kind things about them. You're thinking care, compassionate thoughts. And what's happening now is this part of the brain is becoming firmer, larger, and more powerful. It's actually changing its fine physical structure. And so is a wee bit in there. And what that means is it becomes more powerful. And crucially, these are regions of the brain that play a central role in happiness, joy, and positive mood. And what that means is, against the backdrop of life as it happens, it just becomes, because that part of the brain is now more powerful, it becomes easier to access happiness and joy and positive mood. It doesn't guarantee you'll be happy because, life happens. It's, and life is different for all of us. We have a different context. But regardless of the context, if that part of the brain is more powerful, through consistently thinking kindly, as woo-woo as that might sound, it becomes easier to access those types of emotional states. But it gets even deeper. One of the things that fascinates me is this question. If I was to ask you, what is the opposite of stress? What would you say? Anyone shout out? Happy to take any answers?
Calm.
Calm? Thank you. Anyone else? Peace? Relaxation. Brilliant, thank you. That's exactly, peace, calm and relaxation is exactly the answer I gave. I'm glad you gave me the exact three things, because that's exactly the answer I gave. But it turns out peace, calm and relaxation are not actually the opposite of stress. They represent the absence of stress, what you feel in its absence. The opposite of stress, neurologically and physiologically, is kindness. Now let me rephrase that, because I know you think stress is a feeling, or an experience, kindness is a thing that you do. So let me reword it. The opposite of the experience of stress, and what that is like, is the experience of kindness, and what that is like. And if you chart, which I've done, I've spent years doing this, if you chart all of the effects in the brain, in the body, your heart, your blood vessels, your immune system, the aging process, your cells, right down the genetic level, you'll find that everything that stress, an experience of stress does, an experience of kindness does the opposite. And it's an extension of what I call nature's reward. It's because we're supposed to be kind. That's our nature, it's what we're supposed to do. It's when we're not that some of the opposite effects begin to manifest in the body. But when we're kind, the body is actually at its best, because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But interestingly, when we have an experience of stress, we're all familiar with adrenaline and cortisol. Scientists call these stress hormones. And what that really means to researchers, it means they're the products of an experience of stress. They're the internal, what we call them biological products. They're really what gets produced in the body when you have an experience of stress. But when you have an experience of kindness, whether you're the giver, the receiver, or even the witness to it, you're witnessing it, even on a video, or on a film, or live, you're watching one of your colleagues, or hearing of something that someone else has done. Whatever, that all counts as witnessing. Then you produce what I call kindness hormones. And I call them kindness hormones really just to draw that parallel. They're like stress hormones, but they're produced because of an experience, and they go in the opposite direction. The first venture into this scientists did was they sent people a wee text message in the evening every day for 3 weeks. And they asked them for two numbers. And the first number was, they said, on a scale 0 to 10, what's been your average level of stress today? And they would get in, if 0 is no stress and 10 is, top level stress, roughly, where would you put yourself as an average today? Second question, to the best of your memory, how many kind things can you remember having said or done today? Roughly speaking, to the best of your memory. So now what they had was two numbers, in a sufficiently large enough pool of people that they could add them all and crunch all the data. And you know what they found after the 3 weeks? On the days where the kindness number score was high, the stress number score was always low. On days when the stress number score was high, the kindness number score was low. And what they found is when there's interventions where you increase the kindness score score goes up and the stress score comes down. And it works like a seesaw, they never coexist, there's always one or the other. And neurologically, one of the key things that happens is when you have an experience of stress, there's a wee part of the brain at the back that plays a central role and it dials up in its volume. And so what happens when you feel stressed is a part of the brain that spirals up, and that's why when you get stressed it's difficult sometimes to stop. It gets worse, it can get worse and worse unless you do something, because you're dialing up the intensity of a wee stress centre. But here's a really crucial thing. When you have an experience of kindness, whether you're the giver, the receiver, or the witness, that exact same part of the brain, kindness hormones actually park on it. They literally park. In pharmacology, we call it binding. They bind to it and they dial it down. They literally dial down the intensity. It's like a volume control that's too loud, just like Anne-Marie showed me how to do. When this was too loud, she dialed down the volume. So kindness hormones dial down the volume of the part of the brain that plays a central role in the experience of stress. So the true antidote to stress is helping someone. The true antidote to stress, even if you're stressed in your mind, is if you can find a way of diverting your attention to kindness. Thinking kindly of someone or being kind, doing something. But neurologically, right down to the level of substance in the brain, the opposite of the experience of stress is the experience of kindness. And what I thought I'd do, if you fancy it, is I could show you how to do a simple 5-minute kindfulness practice. And this is something I do every day, and it's really, really easy. You can do it anywhere, anytime, except if you're driving or operating heavy machinery. But any other time, even if you're sitting in the pan, you can do this meditation. That's a key into the secrets of how I began my day today. No, I'm only joking, sort of. But it's a simple practice, and all you're going to do is you're going to think of people in your life, and you're just going to think a few kind things for them. Now, I'll teach you a structured version. It's in the West we call it the loving kindness meditation. In the East it's called metta, and it's a traditional Tibetan Buddhism practice that's centuries, thousands of years old. But in the West it's adapted, and we call it the loving kindness meditation. Basically, you think of people in your life, and for each person, you say something along the lines of, thinking of the person, may you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. And you say it 3 times. May you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. And then I sometimes add an extra wee thing, and if I know the person, I might say, and may you have a wonderful day. May something really amazing happen for you today. Something like that. And so we're going to start with ourselves. So may I be happy and well, because you have to include yourself in kindness. May I be happy and well and safe, and may I feel at ease 3 times. Then someone you care about. Then we'll do someone you don't know all that well. But you know of them, you know who they are. Maybe you interact with them, maybe you don't. So someone you don't know all that well. And then someone that you find challenging. Right? And then we're going to do it for all beings, for everyone in the world. So we start with self, someone you care about, someone you don't know all that well, someone you find challenging or difficult, and then to everyone in the world. Right? And what you're really doing here is you're taking this circle of compassion and you're expanding it from self, loved one, don't know the person that well, someone I find challenging, to everyone in the world. And the reason why researchers know so much about what happens in your brain and what happens in your body, I'm going to talk about what happens in your heart after we finish this. The reason researchers know so much about that is because they do practices like this and they get groups of people to do it. And because everyone has more or less the same experience, it's very easy then to see what happens in the brain, what happens in the immune system, what happens in the heart, what happens in the blood vessels, what happens right down at the genetic level when you're thinking kindly of people. So that's one of the reasons why we know so much about this kind of stuff. So you fancy trying it? Yeah? So just start by, you can close your eyes or keep them open, whatever you're more comfortable with. Many people prefer to close their eyes, but some people prefer to keep them open. It's entirely up to yourself. And just start by bringing your attention to what breathing is like. And most people, when they do this, you'll notice as your attention is on what breathing is like, you probably notice that your breathing will slow down a little bit or get a wee bit deeper. And that's just your nervous system beginning to relax because you're giving yourself permission to relax. And this part we're doing right now is what you call mindfulness. You're mindful of what breathing is like. And now just mentally, starting with ourselves, mentally saying, thinking of yourself, may I be happy and well and safe, and may I feel at ease. May I be happy and well and safe, and may I feel at ease. May I be happy and well and safe, and may I feel at ease. And may I have a really enjoyable day today. And may something really amazing happen for me over the next couple of days, because I deserve it. And now thinking of someone you care about, and now thinking of this person, directing these same intentions to that person, thinking of the person, may you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. May you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. May you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. And may something really wonderful happen in your life in the very near future. May someone pay you a genuine, warm-hearted compliment. May something bring a smile to your face. And now thinking of someone that you don't know all that well. And again, directing the same sentiment, thinking of this person, may you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. May you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. May you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. And may something really magical happen for you in the next few days. Maybe an unexpected blessing or something that brings happiness to you and the people you care about. And now thinking of someone that you find difficult or challenging, and directing the same sentiment to them. For this person, may you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. May you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. May you be happy and well and safe, and may you feel at ease. And may you have a really good, happy day today and over the next few days. May something amazing, something really good luck land on your lap over the next few days. And I'm extending this sentiment all the way out. May all beings far and wide, everyone in the world, be happy and well and safe, and may they feel at ease. May all beings far and wide, everyone in the world, be happy and well and safe, and may they feel at ease. May all beings far and wide, everyone in the world, be happy and well and safe, and may they feel at ease. And then just bring your attention back to your breath. Just bringing your full attention back into this room. And just take a big deep breath and open your eyes if you had them closed, and have a wee stretch, and that's us. So that is a type of practice that comes under the name of kindfulness. It's like mindfulness, but some or all of the attention is directed in a compassionate and kind way. And what's remarkable is that practice causes physical changes in the structure of the brain. Which is amazing, isn't it? When I was a research and development scientist 20 years ago, if someone had told me that thinking kind thoughts about people would change the fine structure of the brain through a process called neuroplasticity, I don't think I'd have believed them. But now we have so much data, so much evidence for that. And I'm trying to make that point that thinking kindly and being kind isn't just something that sort of feels nice. That it is a neurological effect, that with it comes a package of well-being, of mental and emotional well-being. It's nature's reward because we're supposed to be like how you guys are all the time, because this is what you do, you care for a living. You know, so that nature rewards that because we're supposed to be like this. But some of these effects go even deeper. And I used to work in cardiovascular medicine, and that's why I particularly love this. Because when you have an experience of kindness, whether you're the giver of the kindness, the receiver, or the witness to it, and you produce these little kindness hormones, one of the most amazing things that happen is they park, or to use the pharmacological term, they bind, but they park on the lining of your blood vessels. They literally park. Well, our blood vessels are lined with millions upon millions upon millions of parking bays, that in technical terms are called receptors. But for all intents and purposes, they're really like parking bays. We have millions upon millions upon millions of them that line our blood vessels, and they're an exact, through evolution, they're an exact snuggly fit for our kindness hormones. So when you be kind, witness kindness, receive kindness, and you produce your kindness hormones, they get produced in the brain and in the heart simultaneously, and they swim around your blood vessels, and then they park on the line of your blood vessels. And this is where the magic happens. Because when they park there, it causes a wee chemical reaction, it releases the tension in the walls of your blood vessels. And the blood vessels, they become softer because you release the tension, and they go like that, and they expand. You probably make that sound as well if you were listening. But they expand, and now your blood vessel is wider. It's a physical changing shape in your blood vessel caused by kindness hormones, and they literally change shape. Now your heart doesn't have to work as hard to push blood through. So your heart, because it doesn't have to work as hard, it eases off some of its pressure. What you get out of that is a reduction in blood pressure. And for that reason, we now know that kindness is cardioprotective. And what that means is kindness protects your cardiovascular system. It's actually a part of nature's reward. And remember that research study I shared with you right at the start, when volunteers were given a small sum of money, half were asked to spend it on themselves and half were asked to do something good with it. So some of the same researchers a few years later extended it, and they recruited about 200 people who had been diagnosed with hypertension. So people who had been diagnosed clinically with high blood pressure. And it was a 3-week study, and every week for 3 weeks, they gave them all some money. And half of them, like their previous study, they said, treat yourself with that money. And the other half, they said, do something good with the money. Do something for the benefit of someone else. At the end of the 3 weeks, those who'd done something good with the money, something for the benefit of others, had significantly lower blood pressure, both systolic and diastolic. Now, these were hypertension patients, significantly lower systolic and diastolic blood pressure than those who'd spent the money on themselves. And the magnitude of the effect was comparable with diet or exercise. Isn't that extraordinary? You know, so here you had something, a behaviour, having the same impact as diet and exercise on the cardiovascular system. Isn't that extraordinary? And the reason for that is because our kindness hormones bind to the lining of our blood vessels and cause a release in tension. They expand. The heart doesn't have to push as hard, so it eases off its pressure, and you get a reduction in blood pressure. I just wanted to explain that's how it works. Because sometimes if you know how it works, it sort of gets in your head. It's like, this is absolutely amazing. And this explains probably my favourite statistic in all of science. Right, get this. I love animals, right? I've got a dog, a wee 2.5-year-old dog called Daisy. But we lost a dog we had about 9 years ago. It was only 2 years old. He had bone cancer. a Labrador, very young to have bone cancer. We did everything you could possibly imagine to save his life. And during that time of caring for him, I just fell in love with animals, you know. And you'll understand now why this is my favourite statistic. Get this: the chances of a second heart attack, right? So someone who's had a heart attack, right? The chances of a second one within 12 months, within 1 year, if you have a dog, is 400% less. Right? 400% less. Right? Now you'll be forgiven for assuming that that's because you take the dog for a walk and you get lots of exercise. Absolutely, that plays a role. But you'd be surprised, not as big a role, not as dominant a role as you would think. Because now larger studies that look at people who have it in their families, dogs, cats or rabbits or other animals that we tend to bring into our families, there is a substantial protective effect against heart attack or stroke. Now you don't typically take a cat for a walk. So there must be something else going on. So front page in one of the highest ranked scientific journals in the world, a study called Elastic Bond. Researchers asked volunteers to interact warmly, lovingly, playfully, affectionately with their dog for 30 minutes while having levels of kindness hormones sampled. And amazingly, after 30 minutes, levels of kindness hormones had increased by 300%. Isn't that amazing? By 300%. Right? Now, not like 300% in, you know, so I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to find a really good way of explaining it. The point I'm making is, when I worked in cardiovascular medicine, if someone had said to me, because they calculated the rate of it, and the rate of it was 10% per minute. 10% per minute, the levels increased that, and that comes to 300%. If someone had said to me, when I worked in cardiovascular medicine, that interacting kindly, affectionately, playfully with a dog could increase levels of a cardioprotective hormone by 10% in total, I would have taken that as a win. But it wasn't 10% in total. It was 10% per minute over 30 minutes, which is 300%. That's what I was trying to get across there. So it isn't just like 10% increase, it's 10% per minute, which is 300%. So you now begin to understand why the chances of a second heart attack in someone who's had one already, if they have a dog, is 400% less. Because some of it comes from the exercise, of course, but a heck of a lot of it comes from the bond itself. Which is also why interacting lovingly with any animal, cats, rabbits, horses, any animal at all, and human beings. Scientists done a study where they asked women to keep a diary over a month of all the hugs they received. And the women who had the most amount of hugs in the month had the highest levels of kindness hormones and the lowest blood pressure, incidentally. Isn't that amazing? So, incidentally, that's my wee girl. That's Daisy. She's always got a ball in her mouth. So kindness is this extraordinary thing. And I want to really make that point. It isn't just something that you do that sort of feels good. I'm trying to point out that there's neurological effect. You're changing the structure of your brain. You're impacting your heart physically. But it goes even better than that. Scientists did a study just a couple of years ago now, where they took blood samples and they looked at immune cells in our blood. And they went right down to the genetic level, and they asked volunteers to spend a couple of days just doing a bit more kindness than normal, and they were compared to the general population. What they found is, right down to the genetic level, the immune system was behaving differently in those people who were asked to go out and be kind. Isn't that amazing? You don't need to know it, but if you're interested, it's a set of genes called CTRA, and they're a type of genes that are involved in inflammation, and the net effect of these CTRA genes was a reduction in inflammation in the blood as a consequence of just raising the amount of kindness compared to the average person. Isn't that extraordinary? That's what I love about this kind of research. We're learning that kindness isn't just something you do that sort of feels good. It literally has biological, neurological effects right down the genetic level, even slowing the aging process. Scientists looked at skin cells, and they put the skin cells under stress in the lab. And the stress in the lab was meant to simulate the sort of the impact on our skin and our bodies when we're under stress, whether it's psychological stress, mental, emotional stress, lifestyle stress, anything like that. And they found in the skin very high levels of things called free radicals. The free radicals they play a huge role in aging. Right? They play a role in memory loss, dementia, aging of the brain, aging of your heart, your blood vessels, your muscles, your skin, everything. And it's why actually a lot of beauty creams have things in them called antioxidants. And what an antioxidant is a wee sponge that soaks up free radicals. That's all it does. An antioxidant is like a wee sponge that soaks up free radicals, which is why you get antioxidants in face creams. Because the idea being, it soaks up the free radicals which are aging the skin. And that's pretty much what they do. Similarly, we're supposed to eat fruit and vegetables, because fruits and vegetables are packed with green tea and all, are packed with antioxidants. And what they do is they soak up all the free radicals in your arteries, which reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease. And why we drink green tea? Because it can protect against some degenerative conditions of the brain, because it soaks the antioxidants soak up the free radicals in the brain. So researchers did this experiment, put the skin cells under pressure, high levels of free radicals. Then they did the experiment again, this time a few drops of kindness hormones, physiological levels, meaning the sort of levels that you would find through the experiences of kindness. Amazingly, levels of free radicals dropped through the floor. Literally massive drop in free radicals. In other words, an anti-aging effect in the skin of being kind. Isn't that extraordinary? You know? And I can testify to this. I have been practicing this now for 93 years in 7 months. I'm not kidding. Only 83, but exaggerate a little bit. But the point being, but you know, sometimes that might sound a bit out there. How can being kind slow down aging of the skin and the body? Well, think about it the other way. What is one of the best known accelerators of aging of the skin, of the body, of the whole body? Is stress. And what is the opposite of stress? Kindness. So it's obvious. What I just love about it is scientists are beginning to work out why that is and actually what happens. So when you're being kind, there's actually these really profound effects. And recently scientists did a study at the University of Carolina. They got volunteers to practice that kindfulness meditation I taught you, right? Exact one. And they were compared against people doing mindfulness or a control group doing nothing at all. And scientists measured length of a little end cap on our DNA, and they're called telomeres. You know the little plastic end caps on your shoelace? You know, that protect your shoelace? They're called aglets. So your DNA has an aglet as well, but we don't call them aglets, they're called telomeres, but they do more or less the same job. You know, if your aglet on your shoelace wears down, your shoelace is useless because you can't poke it through the wee hole, so you have to go and swirl it around and poke it through. Unfortunately, you can't do that with your DNA. So when your telomere wears down, the cell dies, and that's a big part of the aging process. And one of the most accurate ways to measure your biological age, you know, you have two ages. You have your chronological age, the number of years you've been on this planet, and you have your biological age, which is the age of your body according to the age of how your physiology is working. So you can chart two different ages. Oftentimes people with a very healthy lifestyle have a lower biological age than their chronological age. So researchers were measuring the telomeres, and they looked at the control group, the people doing nothing, to measure how fast we lose telomere length. I mean, right down to the molecular level, they could calculate the average loss in a period of 8 weeks of telomeres. Then they did the study again. This time, they looked at the people doing mindfulness and the other ones doing kindfulness, the exact practice that we learned a wee bit 15 minutes or so ago. And what they found is those doing mindfulness, there was a slight slowing down of the loss of telomere. But those doing kindfulness, the practice you just did, there was no loss of telomere at all in that 8-week period. None at all. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you'll never age. I mean, I really am 93. But it doesn't mean you'll never age. But what it does show is there is a genetic component. There is something that happens, and researchers now think it's an anti-inflammatory effect of kindness, because kindness reduces inflammation in the blood. So they reckon it's an anti-inflammatory effect that's genetically wired in us, and the more consistent we are with it, even though you might not physically see the inside of your body, you can trust that something good is happening on the inside of your body, right down to the genetic level as a consequence of caring. of these little shows of support and encouragement. It's not the big acts of kindness that matter. It's not the big observable things. What produces these effects are the everyday, ordinary things, the little words of encouragement and support, the little ways you're just present with someone, the times you check in on someone, you just listen, and give someone your time and your space. The little things, the little compliments, the little, oh, thanks very much, I really appreciate that. The little things, these are the things that we get nature's reward for. That's what we're supposed to do, but they have a profound physical effect. But although I'm talking about kindness for others, I don't ever want to forget the importance of being kind to yourself. Because I think this is the bit that most of us forget about, that we need to be kind to ourselves. Because it's easy enough, especially if it's your job, to be there for other people. And sometimes, I think there's a scale, and at one end of the scale, it feels like your cup is overflowing. And you've got energy, time, resources, whatever it means, to be there for other people. But there's the other end of the scale, where it feels like your cup is empty, and your batteries are flat, and you're exhausted, you're overworked, you're tired. And it's very difficult then to be fully present and to be yourself with other people. And these are the times where we have to turn the kindness towards ourselves. And we have to do whatever is necessary to protect our mental and physical health. And I think there's a balance point somewhere between these two scales. And it's different for each of us because we all have a different history of our lives, we all have a different background, different things that happen to you, that happen to me in my life, different things that happen to others. We've all got a different history, a different context of our life. So that point where we need to focus on ourselves is different for all of us, and it changes at different points of your life. I've known times in my life when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, I went through a period of clinical depression. But I didn't tell anyone because I was embarrassed. I'd always been the guy who bigs everyone up. I was always the guy people came to if they're struggling and they need a wee pep talk. Everybody will come to me, and I'm the person that says a few nice words, pats your back and sends you on their way. People feel good, and that became part of my identity, being able to help people. And then it got to this point where I was struggling with my own mental health, and I felt ashamed to tell people. Because I was supposed to be the guy that helped everyone. How could I possibly admit that I used to leave work at 4 o'clock, drive home, park outside the house, lock the door, draw the curtains, lie on the floor and cry? And I did that most days for 4 or 5 months. And this is when I first learned one way to practice self-kindness is reach out and tell someone. Because I had prevented I used to pull away from all my friends because I didn't know what to say, and I didn't feel I had the energy to converse, and I didn't know what to talk about because I became, in my head I was thinking, what will I say, how do I talk to people, and you just get all these strange thoughts in your head when you're feeling like this. And my mum kept phoning me up and saying, son, I know there's something wrong, you're not telling me. I go, oh mum, I'm great, your work's a wee bit stressful, but not me, I'm always really happy and cheery. And she kept phoning me and wore me down. Eventually one Sunday night, she got through to me, and I said, okay mum, I'm struggling with depression. And my mum knew about that because my mum had postnatal depression in the mid-70s after my youngest sister. I've got 3 sisters. My youngest sister was born in the mid-70s, and my mum struggled with postnatal depression. It wasn't understood very well at that time. In fact, the doctor said to my mum, give yourself a shake. Asking a woman with postnatal depression to give herself a shake is like asking someone with a broken hip to run it off, and it'll be fine. So my mum didn't get the right treatment that she needed back then, which led to years of anxiety and depression. So my mum understood depression. So she said, son, I want you to come home. And I jumped in the car, and I drove 244 miles from Macclesfield in Cheshire. I drove home one Sunday night, and I spent a week with my mum and my dad, and that was a game changer for me. It didn't cure depression in a day, but what it did is it taught me that it's okay to reach out, it's okay to talk to people, and just know that there's people here who care. I don't even have to talk about it. I just need to know that they care, and I'm here and I'm safe. And also, having other people's perspectives on things, you realise that when you're struggling with your mental health, you only have your own perspective, and it doesn't always look great. But when you hear someone else's perspective, you realise there's other ways of looking at the same things. And so one of the ways we can practice self-kindness is actually do ourselves the self-kindness of telling someone, reaching out if you're struggling in your life. Self-kindness isn't all lavish spa days When I was writing the chapter in my latest book, I wrote a chapter on this. It's the longest chapter in the book, actually, because it's so important, on how to be kind to yourself. And I asked a group of different people that I was friendly with in Dunblane, what's your idea of self-kindness? You know, every single one of them said, a day at the spa at the Sheraton in Edinburgh. We live in Dunblane, it's slightly closer to Edinburgh than Glasgow, it's slightly, kind of 50-50. But even the guy said that, no, I'm not an agent for the Sheraton, I'm not getting paid by them, I just happened to, that's what my friend said. And it's funny, most people's perception of self-kindness is a lavish spending spree on themselves. But it's not that fair enough, if you want to do that, absolutely wonderful. But self-kindness can be a million things. It can be reaching out, it can say, I'm struggling, I'm asking for help. You know, I need help. Or it can be, one of the things I do, one of my challenges is time stressed. Sometimes have so many things to do that it's very hard to fit everything in. But yet, no matter how busy I am, if someone needs me, someone I care about needs me, I'll always find time for them. And I managed to shuffle things around, find a slot in my diary. So what I started doing a few years ago was putting a time slot in my diary that said, meeting with self. And what that was doing was me elevating self-kindness and self-care up to the same level of importance as the time I would give to someone else. I was saying, I take my mental health seriously enough that I'm willing to schedule time for me, even in the middle of the day when I'm normally busy. And by putting it in your diary, you're literally in front of your own eyes, you're elevating your own mental health and how serious you take it. You're elevating it up to the same level as you would for someone else. It might just be a 15-minute meeting. Oftentimes I have a 15-minute meeting with self, and I just do anything. Sometimes I'll sit and I'll do a meditation, or sometimes I'll just flick through pages of a book, or sometimes I'll just go for a wee walk, or do whatever I like. Sometimes I have an hour. It is not unknown for me when I really need it to watch an episode of Star Trek in the middle of the day. And the fact that I'm busy and I'm now watching an episode of Star Trek, what that's telling me, what that's going into my subconscious mind is how seriously I am taking the need for self-care and how seriously I'm taking my own mental health. So there's loads of ways you can be kind to yourself. Taking a bath, reading a book, going for a walk in nature. There's a million things. It doesn't always have to be a lavish treat. So I just wanted to share with you a couple of different takes on it. You know, there's loads of ways that you can be kind to yourself. But the point is recognizing that there's a scale. Your cup is full, and you've got all the time and space and energy and resources to help, to be present. But sometimes your cup is empty. Your battery's flat, and that's when you really need to turn the dial inwards and say, I need to be kind to myself. So I want to kind of finish by talking about one of my favourite effects of kindness. And one of my favourite effects of kindness is that it is highly contagious. In fact, of all the things I've learned in science, one of the most contagious things is kindness. In fact, so contagious that the R number of kindness, remember the R numbers from lockdown and all that? An R number greater than 1 means it's increasing. It's contagious, it's more contagious. Kindness has an R number somewhere between 3 and 5. It's really contagious. But get this, research at Harvard and Yale found that kindness actually causes a ripple effect that goes out to what's called 3 social steps. And what that means, let's take the R number of 5, right? Because it makes it look, I like using the R number of 5 for this. Let's take the higher end of the R number. The R number can be 3 to 5. It depends on context. It depends where you are, where you live, how many people you interact with. But as a ballpark average, it varies from 3 to 5. But let's take the R number of 5 and use Harvard and Yale's measurement of 3 social steps. So what that means is, let's say in any one day, let's say today, you do something kind, or you say something kind for someone. What you don't see is what happens next. Right? You be kind, right? And then you go away. So you do part of your job, you be kind, you be present for someone, then you go on with the rest of your day. What you don't see is what happens next. If you were to follow that person around for the rest of the day, what you'll find is that person will likely now be kind or kinder to 5 people, simply because of how you made them feel. might be gratitude or relief, or just feeling a connection or something else. Researchers call it elevation. When you receive kindness, you feel what they call elevation. It's a way to describe any of a vast number of different positive feelings and sensations you get when you're the receiver of kindness. But through elevation, what happens is that person would be kinder or kinder to 5 people, but you don't see that because you've just done your thing and then you've got on with the rest of your day. But those 5 people are now defined at what they call one social step away from you. Now, if you had a wee drone and you were to now track those 5 people, not that you would, but if you did, you would track those 5 people. What you would then find over the course of the next 24 hours or so is each of those 5 people would then be kinder or kinder to 5 people. And now you have 25 people, but you don't see that. Now you have 25 people who are now defined as 2 social steps away from you, now receiving an act of kindness. Now, if you had a swarm of drones, again, not that you do that, but if you did, and you were to track the behaviour of those 25 people over the next 24 hours or so, because of how they now feel, you'll find that each of them, on average, will also be kinder or kinder to 5 people. What you now have, at 3 social steps away from you, is 125 people benefit from an act of kindness. But you don't see that, and I'll put it to you that every single day, you all cause that effect. You just don't see it. It's like if you walk past a pond, and you're walking past and you flick a wee pebble in, then you walk away. You go on the right and chat to people on your phone. What you don't see, the pebble lands in the pond and it goes like that, and it creates a wee wave. And for the next 5 or 10 minutes, that wee wave's propagating out, and the other side of the pond, there's a wee lily pad doing that. And it's got no idea why it's doing that. But it's doing that because of the wave. But what set the wave in motion was the wee pebble that you flicked into the pond as you were walking past. But that pebble is a metaphor for an act of kindness that you drop in people's lives every day. What you don't see is a lily pad, and that's people's smiles, people's day, the quality of someone's life, even the bit that you don't see, even imperceptibly, that's increasing because of that little show of support, the little words of encouragement, the little taking the time to be present with someone. All these little things actually matter, and they create this enormous ripple effect. I want to kind of show you, that took me 2 hours to make that PowerPoint, by the way. You're welcome. Sorry. Yeah. So 3 degrees or 3 social steps away. But I want to kind of show you now a wee video that captures that.